Hey everybody, it's Tasha with TNC Creations. My printer cartridges ran out of ink a minute ago, so I took this time to take an opportunity to kind of go over with y'all some of the little things that I learned that I could not find a whole lot of YouTube videos on. As you can see, I've been kind of messing with the ink a lot. Okay, so first thing that I want to go over with you is what kind of printer I have. I have an Epson 7720. When I bought it, it did not come with the sub ink. I had to buy the sub ink. And the sub ink came from Cosmos Ink. I bought new cartridges and I bought the ink from Cosmos Ink. And then about 3 or 4 months ago, I rebought new ink and new cartridges because my old ones, and I can show y'all what my old ones look like. So these are my old ones, and after a while, these little plungers at the bottom start to leak. Now, I've had these for over a year. And even though we've well maintained them, it's just after a while they start to wear out. So I like to keep new cartridges on hand. So that's what we did. So I figured this would be a good time to not only change my cartridges and go on and refill my ink, but to give y'all a helpful video that I hope truly helps you. So first things first, when I first bought my printer, I ran 5 or 10 prints through it of the regular ink that came with the Epson. Ran it through, and then I took it out, and then I filled my cartridges up after 2 or 3 days of searching for YouTube videos, put the sublimation ink in, and then I ran about 30 or 40 head cleanings. And it took a good amount of head cleanings, but once it did, you could see the color slowly starting to brighten on the paper. It still looks dull, but it's still a lot brighter than what it did when it first came out. So now that you know what kind of printer I have, I'm going to go over with y'all a few tips about the printer cartridges. There are 2 plungers at the top, a clear one and a colored one. Take them both out. Take the colored one out and take the clear one out. Not all cartridges are the same. I'm going to show y'all on my old one what I'm talking about. Okay. This is my new cyan. This is my old one. Okay. My old one did not have one of these plungers on it. It just had an empty hole and a clear plunger. Okay. Did not have one of these. Had a clear plunger and an empty hole. So I'm going to tell you, this empty hole that's towards the back, do not put ink in that. That is just an empty chamber back here that holds air that keeps the ink flowing through the cartridge. The clear cartridge you took out. The clear plunger you take out, and that's where you put the ink at. And then you fill it back in. On my new cartridge, I had both. In the very back, I had a clear plunger, and on the very front, I had the colored plunger. The colored plunger, which is up here by the snap, is where you fill the ink in at. Okay, on my old one, and I'm going to show y'all the difference. Look at the difference. Okay, so here's my old one at the bottom. Here's my new one at the top. The plungers in the back, you take out and you leave out. After you fill it up and everything, and while you're filling it, you take them out and you leave them out. The hole to fill on my old one was about midways. The hole on my new one is all the way up front. Okay, so this one, my old one did not come with a plunger in this hole. It just came empty. And so you take the clear plunger out, you fill it up, and then you put the clear plunger back in. My new one came with a clear plunger in the back and a colored plunger in the front. So I took this one out because I'm going to leave it out and it's not going to go back in. And then my blue plunger, which is going to be replaced back in my ink cartridge after I fill it up. So before I fill it up, there's another thing that I want to go over with you all. So when you fill this up, the ink comes all down here, right? This little chamber back here stays empty because it pulls a vacuum pretty much on the cartridge to let the ink flow through. All this fills up. On my old cartridges, it did the same thing. The only difference is, which these are still kind of full, my dark colors are, down here, this little tube, I don't know if y'all can kind of see it. Okay, this little section right here, when I first bought my ink cartridges, they looked just like this. They were empty and new. Okay, I filled it up, but there was no ink in this little tube right here. And so I Googled for 2 or 3 days because I told my husband I couldn't figure out why the ink wasn't coming out. What's the matter? What's the matter? I've done exactly what the video showed me to do. Well, come to find out, some, not all, some ink cartridges you have to prime. And what that means is after you fill it up and you replace your plungers at the top, you take a needle syringe, the same color syringe that you used to fill it up, and you take the needle tip and you stick it down here in the bottom like that. Okay, in the bottom of the thing, and it's going to make a mess, so make sure you take a paper towel, right? You stick the needle in the cartridge, you suck the ink out, and then you push it back in. And that is called priming your cartridge. Okay, not all of them do it though, because, and here's why I say that. This one, I did my magenta to make sure that we were going to have to prime this one, because if I needed to prime it on the video, I was going to show y'all how to prime it. Well, as you can tell, I did not prime it, and the ink went all the way down to the little bottom. So these cartridges did not need to be primed. But you see how this chamber here is empty, and that's where the little plunger in the back was, and I replaced my front plunger. So I'm going to refill it and show y'all one time how to fill it. So here's my syringe. They're 5 milliliters. I use these to fill it, and I use the pointy ones to prime the bottom. But because these don't need to be primed, I don't have to worry about any of those. So we're going to fill up our syringe. Okay, and I'm going to let y'all kind of see it being filled up. Okay, so it's about halfway now. Okay, so we're now at 10 milliliters of ink. There we go. So the small ink cartridges take 10 milliliters. The double ink cartridges take 20 milliliters, and these are the black ones. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the front plunger, okay, which is by the clip that clips into the printer. I'm not going to replace this back one. I'm going to leave it empty because that's the little chamber back here that holds air. Okay, and as you can see at the bottom, you see the ink had already went down in the hole, so it's ready to print. These, when I bought my old ones, did not do that. I had to force the ink down here myself. So that is how you fill your ink cartridges, and you do that with each one, and then you place them in. Sometimes you do have to run a clean head process on your printer. I usually have to do 2 or 3 when I first replace my ink cartridges and fill them up with ink. I usually have to run 2 or 3 ink cleanings through it. And then once my sheet comes out where everything looks great, then I'm okay to go. But I hope this video was helpful. Again, if you have any problems or questions or concerns, please comment below or click the link below for additional help. Thank you so much.